Hi everyone, Bandana here, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to an updated top 10 upcoming RTS games list. We last did this back in January and I figured it's probably worth getting one in before the big set of summer game announcements. Now, while this is a top 10, they're not in any particular order, so please don't think that the one at the front is certainly the best. There are going to be different games for different tastes, and if you have anything else on your list that I don't have on mine, do let us know down in the comments. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're interested in this kind of video. Alright, let's get into it. First up is Broken Arrow, perhaps a game that needs no introduction, and this is actually now the top wishlisted RTS game on Steam. For those who aren't familiar, Broken Arrow is a real-time modern warfare tactics game. What sets it apart from many other games is the fact that you can completely customize the units in your army. You will choose two specializations from either the Americans or the Russians, and then you will build a deck around that, where you can then edit each of the units, changing weapons, armor, and various other options. The game will include a single-player campaign, obviously various multiplayer modes, including custom game modes that you can create yourself in their editor. How the editor is going to be on release, we don't know yet, but hopefully pretty functional. And this obviously includes co-op game modes you can create versus the AI. I will note that it appears the AI is scripted for each mission in this game rather than being able to be played against in skirmish, so skirmish will not be available in the game. The main multiplayer mode is 5 versus 5, and this is where you'll be able to take your pre-made decks and play with all of your units, everything from the most basic infantry all the way through tanks and up to being able to drop tactical nuclear weapons. Choice is certainly not something this game is lacking. I could go on talking about the game, but we'll be here for a while. I recommend checking out some of the gameplay that I've done on the channel. The game is due out on the 19th of June, and you are currently able to pre-order a special Vanguard edition, which includes some additional bits and pieces, including 3 days early access starting on the 16th of June, and this will set you back £49.99, or £50 if we just round it up. I will note that the base game itself, which will be available on release on the 19th, will of course be cheaper, and if you're not in any rush, you can just wait. Next up is Falling Frontier, a game we've mentioned before on the channel. This is one of the Hooded Horse published titles and is coming from Stutter Fox Studios. In this game you will explore a vast procedurally generated star system. It's a sci-fi RTS where intel and logistics are decisive factors. You'll design ships and raid enemy supply lines, lay minefields and construct recon stations, ambush enemy forces within asteroid fields and nebula, and obliterate planets from orbit. From the videos and footage we've seen so far, the game is looking very cool, though unfortunately at the moment it has no planned release date. It is certainly one to watch, and remember you can wishlist it right now, and I note on this particular game a significant number of my friends on Steam have already wishlisted this one. Well, let's stick with the theme, shall we? So next up is Fragile Existence, another Hooded Horse published sci-fi game which is being created by Fragile Continuum. This is a 4X/RTS title set in space. The game is all about fighting for survival as Earth has been attacked and you must set out from Sol to inhabit new planets and strip them of their resources. Obviously, there will be hostile forces in some of these areas. You'll have both a fleet in space, and then as you land on planet, you will have to control your forces in real time to both explore and build bases there, your more traditional RTS aspects. It should be noted that while there are 4X aspects to this, it's all real time, including the space combat and moving your ships around, but it does include a tactical pause for when you need to slow things down. It's certainly a game with a lot going on, and the reality is, without getting my hands on it, it's very hard to talk about all of its different systems. I am, however, certain it's one to keep an eye on, so remember to click the link and wishlist it. It is currently due for release sometime this year, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a demo or at least some kind of press preview in the not too distant future. Okay, let's bring things back down to earth, shall we? Next up is Stronghold Crusader Definitive Edition. Anyone who knows the channel will know that I'm a big fan of the Stronghold series. I played through the campaign for the Stronghold Definitive Edition on the channel previously, and I've certainly been putting up videos of playing the demo of the definitive edition for Crusader. Firefly certainly turned heads when they brought out the previous definitive edition, and this one certainly looks good as well, with plenty of new additions. Those additions include 8 new units, 4 new lords to play against on top of the ones that were previously available, 2 brand new historical campaigns, and 4 new Sands of Time skirmish trails. And there will also be a new co-op trail, so you can play against the AI with a friend. And of course there will be skirmish and multiplayer. Basically, just like the Stronghold Definitive Edition, it's everything you could want from a remaster, and I think that the Firefly team have done a really good job again here. There is a demo available on Steam now. You can obviously wishlist it, and it's planned for release on the 15th of July, so not long to wait now. Next, we're heading back into space with Hooded Horse, funnily enough, and Hellride Games for Capital Command. In this game, you will take the helm of a state-of-the-art warship as you fight epic space battles in a sandbox campaign. You can upgrade and customize your ship, master the art of maneuvering, and use a blend of tactical prowess and heavy firepower to overcome deadly threats. Now, this is one of those games that's definitely not going to be for everyone because, well, it can be quite involved. The spaceflight mechanics are pretty darn realistic, and you have to work hard to control your ship and not lose control. Not only will we be managing the movement and the weapon systems, you'll also need to manage the crew on the ship and prioritize where you want them to do repairs, etc, etc. The essence of the game is you are lost on the far reaches of space, the AI that is supposed to control and defend the sector has gone rogue, and you need to stop it. But as you can imagine, you're in the middle of nowhere, and therefore you're low on resources, including being low on fuel, so you'll have to decide carefully when to and when not to engage. A bit of a thinking man's game, perhaps. It's slated for release sometime in 2025. Next up is another game we've talked about on the channel before, and that is Dwarf, which sadly still doesn't have a release date, which makes me very sad. The good news is it is still being worked on. The developer keeps posting updates on Twitter and things like that with new screenshots and GIFs and little videos of the progress that is being made. In this game, you'll command one of 3 unique factions and conquer your enemies in a twisted vision of the future. Construct sprawling bases, scour the land for resources to mine and refine, and assemble powerful armies of land, air and sea units to smash your adversaries. And there are some weird and wonderful units in this game. I mean, some massive and very weird units in this game. Obviously going for a slightly older look, like the older Command & Conquer games, Tiberian Sun and Red Alert 2 come to mind in particular. As with those games, this game will have a campaign for each of the factions and obviously multiplayer options. Currently, the game is being produced by 2 developers, and they're working very hard with their own cash and a little bit of money from Patreon at the moment. Their plan is to, once they hit a milestone of their development stage, they're going to run a Kickstarter to try and help fund the rest of development. Very cool looking game in my opinion, definitely one to keep an eye on, and you can go and wishlist it now, and obviously wishlisting these games does help in terms of investors or publishers potentially becoming interested in a project. Okay, next up is another game that's no stranger to the channel, and that is Sanctuary Shattered Sun. This is a spiritual successor to the Command & Conquer games, being made by a small team. They've been hard at work for a number of years, and I've had chance to play their demo on the channel before. This is obviously an alpha demo or pre-alpha demo, so you can go and check out footage of that if you like. However, much like the Supreme Commander series, it all centers around having 3 different factions on a Dyson sphere in this case, fighting for survival and obviously control of the sphere. The 3 factions are the EDA, the Chosen and the Guard, which bear a not dissimilar resemblance to the 3 factions from the Supreme Commander games. And much like those games, it's all about massive battlefields, massive numbers of units, and, well, massive units. The game is also boasting some interesting new features, like the ability to shatter the ground with certain super weapons, which will rip a hole in the Dyson sphere and let through the sunlight. And there'll also be mechanics like the ability to freeze areas of the map due to the weather control systems built into the Dyson sphere. There's no current release date, but the plan is for a Kickstarter, and prior to the Kickstarter they want to release a new demo on Steam to the general public, and currently they're working on that as well as the rest of the game. The demo will have a mission which will be an introduction to the game, the story, and all of the gameplay mechanics, so it's taking them quite a while to get that right. And I think that's pretty reasonable. It's important for them to get everything right so that the Kickstarter is a success and they can finish funding the game development. However, I expect we'll be seeing the Kickstarter and indeed the demo sometime this year, so watch this space and don't forget to wishlist it on Steam. Okay, next up we're going for some sci-fi with Ironwood and Starland Studios' new game, Zero Space. This is a traditional RTS along the lines of StarCraft and StarCraft 2. The big difference here, it's going to be the first RTS where all game modes, single player, co-op, PvE and PvP, are played in a shared MMO galaxy map where you contribute towards the war effort through conquering planets and fortifying alliance strongholds. They're aiming to have a really detailed story that will set up this galactic conflict, where, much like things like Mass Effect, you will build up relationships with your crew and the heroes you enlist during the campaign, which will include 13 main story missions, 14 hero loyalty missions, and 20 side story arcs, so it's going to be pretty big. And much like we would find in RPGs, there'll also be hours of cinematic cutscenes and interactive dialogues where your choices will dictate the game's outcome. Outside of that, there will be 4 main factions, each with 10 units and 9 buildings. There'll also be 6 mercenary factions with 4 to 5 units each, and then the 14 heroes from various factions in the campaign mode, and you'll be able to select one to lead your multiplayer games. No current release date, but it did have a recent demo, so I would expect we'll see more demos in the future. Okay, next up is a game with a similar theming, but playing quite differently, and that is Battle Aces. This is a fast-paced, action-oriented, real-time strategy game where you defend your base, advance your tech, and attack the enemy's core. Pretty much like a standard RTS in that sense. You will customize your unit deck by deploying strategic compositions to fight your way to become one of the best-in-class drone pilots known as Battle Aces. Now, unlike a lot of standard base-building RTSs, in this one you have a set of units which you can select from to build a deck before you go into a game, and this deck is what you will use to fight the enemy. Expansion bases are at set points on the map, and your units teleport in rather than being built slowly. Everything in this game is about speed and being fast, and the rounds themselves don't take that long. Obviously, as you can imagine from what I've said, this is going to be quite a competitive RTS game, and there's already plenty of little tournaments and games between high-profile players going on in the beta. So if that's your scene, this is definitely one to keep an eye on. Do remember to wishlist it, and you can also apply to join their beta as well. Now, as for the main 10 of this list, I guess the last one here will be Ably, which I covered in a video the other day and you can check out on the channel if you want a lot more detail. This is an upcoming classic RTS, the twist being they're really trying to go out of their way to make the 3 factions a little bit more unique, so they each have unique mechanics rather than them all play in a similar way like you might expect from the older Command & Conquer games. The other nice thing is the factions are all very unique in their styling, so you've got one that looks like the Terrans from StarCraft, you've got one that is what we're calling a Gutterpunk or Sewerpunk faction and look more like something you would find in Warhammer, and then you've got something which is sort of medieval / magical in its look, but with obviously some fancy tech. I don't know if anyone's ever watched the Netflix animation Nimona, but think that kind of medieval. But each faction's going to have at least 15 units and buildings. There's going to be hero-type units in the campaign, but not in multiplayer. And they're focusing on not making the game too actions per minute orientated and more based around just general skill and tactical prowess. The game does appear to be coming along nicely, and you can wishlist it now. Demo is probably going to be later in the year, certainly a press access demo at the very least, I would hope. Now, though that's sort of my top 10 list, there's a couple of other games that I want to mention, but we won't go into too much detail on them. One of those is Star Miner, which is an upcoming game published by Paradox Arc and developed by Cool and Good Games, and this you will design and build an interstellar mining fleet to strip space of its valuable minerals and sell them for a tidy profit, but beware, your greed will attract the aliens. Then you will use warships and defense platforms to protect your fleet at all costs in real space in real time. It has some really cool looking features, like the fact you build ships and platforms and stations yourself with a modular building system, which leads to some very cool looking ships and stations in the pictures and videos they've released so far. And they are giving plenty of updates, by the way. The only reason this didn't sort of make it into the top 10 list is because, well, I already had 10, and also it doesn't strike me as a pure RTS game in that it's more of a base building mining game with some tower defense aspects when you're doing the combat, though you can pilot your own ships, which is pretty cool. As I say, a bunch of cool features. It's going to depend on how well it all gels together. And finally, as another little bonus, I just want to give a quick shout out and a reminder to everybody that Empire Eternal is on the horizon. This is the follow-up to Empire Earth. It's being made by EPO Games and published by Microprose. Unfortunately, there's currently no release date, but it does look like it's coming along very nicely from the videos. And, you know, if you're a fan of Empire Earth, well, consider this the remastered version with a bunch of stuff added. And we shall leave this list there for the time being. Now, there are many more RTS games out there, and I'm sure you spotted some that should be on this list in your mind. Please do feel free to share them down below in the comments. It might be that I've checked them out and they just didn't make the list this time, but, well, there's always next time. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you all soon.